The Irrational Confidence Podcast.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're talking college football. Rivalry week is over. The leftovers are getting scarcely thin. Thanksgiving's over, and the regular season of college football is over. But what's never over is my co-host, Fresh. Fresh, how you doing, buddy?
Haps doing fantastic. Another year of beating the Bugs. It was this past weekend, Friday and Saturday. There was more intrigue on where Lane Kiffin and where John Summerall is going to go and who Sewell is going to hire, who Auburn's going to hire, and what the Ole Miss and LSU coaching situation is going to be than really any of the results in the football games. Chalky, very chalky this past weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And that adds more chaos for the committee and what they're going to do on Tuesday and how the conference championship games are going to play out. The only thing that didn't go chalky was SMU choking at Cal and giving us the Duke Blue Devils in college football playing for an ACC title, which might bring the most insane result. And we'll talk about that a little later. But the funniest part of all is that Manny Diaz, who was the head coach at Miami, is coaching in the ACC Championship Game faster than the Miami Hurricanes have ever played in the ACC Championship Game. It's just, I put it on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. The expanding of the conferences, this is the negative impact of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's so many teams in the league. You're not playing a common opponents across the board. The ACC, there's one loss team, and there are 5 teams with 2 losses in the conference. And somehow Duke wins on tiebreakers. Duke, their only they played Tulane, lost. They played Virginia, lost. They beat Clemson by a point. And they played Georgia Tech and lost. So you're kind of like, well, how the hell did they win 2 tiebreakers? But somehow they did because it's so not enough common opponents, and things just get all muddy and messed up. And that right there is just, it's the negative impact that nobody saw coming that really hurts. They thought dominant teams would just clear through, play for a title, and the weekend would be nothing. But now we're seeing, once again, the ACC and the ACC Championship Game is the one that the ugly duckling is showing up and potentially having a chance to really jack up a lot of seasons.
Yeah, we're going to have to talk about these playoff rankings because I think there's one team that right now is sitting in a position where they feel really good or everything could go south on them very, very fast. We'll talk about that later here in the show. And I'll take my little victory lap because there's a guy on the show who a couple of weeks ago said, well, there's a possibility that the ACC conference champion could be left out of the playoff.
Who would that be?
This guy right here.
Well, there could be no ACC team in the playoff.
That's true.
That's the best part right there in itself. And that goes
That'd
back
be
to
wild.
There's already beef with the ACC. If that happens, it could happen to a better fan base than the Miami Hurricanes. I'll say that, so I don't feel it too bad, but it would be bad. It would be very bad.
Yeah.
But hey, that's why it's 5 conference champions, and you kind of roll from there.
All right, Fresh. Well, let's kind of roll through the weekend here. And as much as I would love to talk about all that's right in the world that is back again, as Ohio State went back into Ann Arbor and smacked around the Wolverines, I can't start there. I got to start on Thursday night and even Friday as well. Thursday, we got Navy beating Memphis, but they're not playing for the American because of North Texas and Tulane both winning. But then we go into Austin, Texas, and we got to talk about the Texas problem we have now. And Texas A&M. We talked a lot about on the show how using the metrics that I've been looking at for strength of schedule, Texas A&M has a really nice win with their week 2 win or week 3 win in Notre Dame. But after the rest of that, they've avoided Georgia. They've avoided Alabama. They've avoided Ole Miss. They finally go up against Texas. Granted, it is on the road. And I will say this, they got taken out to the farm and turned in a cow into hamburger meat there on that one. How far does the first question I got to ask you is how far does Texas A&M drop? Because their strength of schedule is not phenomenal.
It's not.
And they look kind of average against Texas, again, I don't care what Stark wants to say and go, well, you don't want to schedule Ohio State. Great. Don't lose to Florida. Don't lose to
Florida. Don't go to overtime versus Kentucky and Mississippi State.
If you want to dominate all year,
you're extremes. Against good teams, you play up, and then against the bad teams or mid teams, you play way, way down. There's never an in between with Texas this year. And you had UTEP, Sam Houston State, and somebody else. So you with the Ohio State loss, it afforded you like, all right, we could lose one conference game, go play for a conference championship, which you thought you would do. But you go and it wasn't just a close loss before. Florida owned that entire game. That was a DJ Radway, Billy Napier coached Florida team in the swamp that you completely unprepared for. Arch, until the fourth quarter, didn't really look very comfortable. You would get the pass rushers there. Your offensive line was terrible. But then you have no excuse to go to overtime in Lexington or Starkville back-to-back weeks. Maybe one of those, I get it. It's like, all right, the sleepwalk, but you lose to Florida, and then you go dominate. Now, you beat an Oklahoma team whose offense already struggles with an injured John Messier. If Messier was healthy and that offense was clicking, which I don't think Messier's fully healthy even now, but the offense would look good, maybe you don't win that game, but you kind of like, oh, we're going to get back here, we're going to go beat our rival, and then you just laid back down, kind of wade the weeds through. And now you're the one crying. Well, you know what? You had chances. Don't lose to Florida, like we mentioned. Don't, go out there and show dominant efforts. Your offensive line's terrible, but A&M, they're just a little brother. And they knew exactly when they walked in that building, just like last year. And that's why I called Texas to beat them on our preview episode. You knew this was going to happen. Texas was going to get up because it meant more to Texas. A&M thought we're in. And we either get a home game at Kyle Field potentially, which now, based on the way everything went, chalk could be in jeopardy, or we go play for the SEC Championship game, which we haven't done. This is 2 years in a row with a week or two to go in the season where they drop the ball, figuratively and literally, to keep themselves from playing for a conference championship. Marcel Reed looked uncomfortable. The defense didn't do anything. They were running walls. The offense was just dysfunctional, completely unprepared for A&M. And maybe that strength of schedule came back. They did obviously get lucky versus Notre Dame. And that's where we had the Notre Dame Miami conversation, but also now that it's a one-loss A&M team who won on a controversial final play up in South Bend. Yeah, they have one loss, but the way that I see them as a football team, are they better than Oklahoma? Are they better than Alabama? Are they better than BYU? Are they better than Notre Dame? By 1 point, yes, but there was some blatant holding. If you want to have the head-to-head matchup, then A&M's ahead of Notre Dame. But are they better than Vanderbilt? Are they better than Miami? They're obviously on the field not better than Texas. The Texas has 3 losses. This is like, as much as we bash the committee, the committee actually has a very hard job. But it's not the top 6 teams. It's easy. And then you have the group of 5 team, which I think will sort itself out. That's going to be easy. So you have 7 of your 12 is pretty locked in, guaranteed. The other 5, it's not easy. And you're not going to solve it by expanded playoff, because then we're going to have this conversation. Well, number 20 in the country, number 21 in the country. Right. And then it becomes number 26 and number 20. We do it for basketball. They're the 68 team. Well, we got 5 other teams that should be in the over the 68 team. Then we're talking 70, 80, 90. You have to stop it somewhere. So the committee has issues. They aren't the smartest, but they do have a very tough decision on how do you, with expanded conference play, with less common opponents, losses come into play. Which loss means more? Which loss means less? It's going to be dicey. And conference championship week, you at least will know, Ohio State, Indiana, who's the number 1 overall seed in the country and who is the number 4 seed in the country. It's the least anticipated 1-2 matchup in the history of college football. And I could honestly see both teams being a little bit vanilla. But at the same time, neither of them won a conference title in a long time. So this is a rare opportunity to get that trophy in your football office. Texas Tech, BYU. If BYU gets 2 losses, that puts them out. If Texas Tech, which I think is a lot, they lose, and that puts them in a chaos spot. Oregon's protected, but Oklahoma haven't looked pretty, but they've won. Are they a lock? Yeah, well, there's a lot. And Bama, 3 losses where the championship game comes in. Bama has 3 losses. We usually kind of like, well, if you lose the championship game, you're kind of protected, but that puts them in a spot where they have a lot of losses. And we've seen a 1-loss Georgia, 2-time defending national champion, get left out of the playoffs by losing by 3 points in a conference title game. So this is going to be a lot of precedent and a lot of finagling. And I don't think what happened on Tuesday night when the rankings come out is going to even reflect any kind of standing going forward to next Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock or noon.
Right. And I think too, Fresh, that you brought it up. Alabama is in probably the toughest position because you have to win the SEC title game. You have, with their position, where they're at with the ranking, they have to win the SEC title game. When you're sitting at 10 and you have a team like BYU, who's also playing for a conference title game, if BYU comes up and beats Texas Tech, then there's no way Alabama makes it if they don't win the SEC, which then will cause a ripple effect. The other one, too, that we haven't even discussed, we haven't even scratched the surface of, there's all these reports out there, and we're recording this early Sunday morning, that Lane Kiffin is going to be hired by LSU. We're going to see what happens here. Don't know if that's true, but there's conversations of, is he going to be allowed to coach Ole Miss in the playoff if they were to make it? A couple of years ago, we had Jordan Travis. FSU was undefeated. Jordan Travis goes out with injury, and the committee left FSU out of the playoff because they were lacking their quarterback. What would the committee do if a team doesn't have their head coach on the field? And they say, like, it's a different team now. That's what they said at the time. It's a different team because they don't have their quarterback. Is it a different Ole Miss team because they don't have their head coach? Is there this weird possibility that you leave a one-loss Ole Miss team out of the playoff just because they don't have the coach?
Well, some news broke today, and I retweeted it from on Three Sports, but I think it's a very reputable, group. They do a heck of a job. But now there's drama about him potentially poaching additional coaches and having them leave immediately, and potentially having players hit the portal immediately so they can come right to LSU. They're missing out on a playoff opportunity. This entire alumni base, like, you talk about pure hatred, the vitriol disdain that Ole Miss is going to have for Lane Kiffin, who is arguably the greatest coach in program history, is going to be at a fever pitch because he's going to pluck. That entire coaching staff. What if Trinidad Chambliss, does he even leave? Does he go with him to LSU? Does he stay and play it out? I think he might as well play it out. That'd be cool. But how many key players do you lose off that team that are essential? So that's not just the quarterback situation like Florida State had. Now it's players, it's coaches, it's game planning, it's development. It's Lane Kiffin's creative offensive approach where he will go for the jugular randomly at times. He'll call unique formations, unique plays that another offensive coordinator is not going to do. So you can't replicate that mind or that approach in a game where it all matters. It's a very unique situation. And now someone's going to say, well, what about John Summerall or Tulane? Well, Tulane's a winner in this situation. There is no, if they win, they're in. Florida or Auburn, whoever's leading, I think's leading Florida right now. Do they let him coach it in? But right now, it's not getting in. Like the playoff spot, if they win on Friday night versus North Texas, Tulane's in. They can't keep them out unless they somehow rank Tulane below Virginia or Duke and below James Madison. Now that could be a little chaotic. I don't think JMU, if Tulane wins, I don't think JMU's qualified to be higher ranked than Tulane because Tulane has a win over Northwestern. That's a Big Ten win. They have a win over Duke, who is playing in the ACC title, and they're going to win an American League Conference, which we've seen has had a lot of very good football this year. So that the committee, if they did that, that would be egregious. I think more egregious than not putting Ole Miss in, who doesn't have Lane Kiffin. So there is the committee does not have an easy job, and the precedent they're setting here, which they've already set it with the player, they would have to use that as a guiding light to go forward. And I'm asking you right now, if you're the AD of Ole Miss and you're now most likely departed coach is going to a hated rival, Ole Miss and LSU hate each other, and he wants to take players and go immediately and leave, do you just say, believe it, get out, take who you want, go? Or do you want to protect the program to try to keep them for a playoff, begging whatever, concessions have to be made to allow them to play, or do you just let him go? It's like, you know what? Where the cards fall where they may. If you leave, go ahead, leave. Me, I would say, you don't want to be here. Goodbye. I don't want you are not an Ole Miss rebel. Leave. But you cannot take players and coaches with you because they also have individual contracts.
Right. I would say you can go, but you can't take anyone with you. Almost like a NDA. Like, you want to leave, that's fine, but you can't take anyone else with you at this time. You have to go through. Yeah. And here's the other thing too. I'm not letting you out of your contract. I might even do that. I'm not letting you out of your contract unless it's a promotion. And I know that there's all sorts of fun, wonky stuff that you can do with the naming and the title of the position. But at the same time, too, I would look at all of those guys and say, we got a good thing going on here. Your Lane Kiffin probably isn't your main recruiter. You have a top 25 class right now that you got to keep together because early signing day is December 3rd through the 5th. I might say to all of those going, what we're going to do is we're going to look at you guys and maybe internally promote. One of the coordinators, we're going to pump you up to the head coach spot, see how that works out for us. Because maybe that's what works out there.
And you got Charlie Weiss Jr., the OC, a former Georgia quarterback, Joe Cox, is the passing game coordinator and the tight ends coach. And you also have former Alabama DC, is now the DC at Ole Miss. There are guys who've been around the game, but none of them can lead and they can hold up a microphone, have the experience ready to take on all the media scrutiny that's going to come their way. And you know what? If Lane does leave and Ole Miss is in, and one of those three, the interim coach, they're going to take all these questions of how do you change the approach? Like the media nonsense that's going to surround them, that's going to be coming to them, isn't going to be fair, because now they're going to have to answer questions. Well, how's the team doing? How do you expect things are going to change? What's your approach? How are you going to change your approach on game day compared to Coach Kiffin? Blah blah blah. And they're going to be just having to try to maintain it. Where look, they're behind the scenes for a reason. They don't do much media availability talk for a reason. That's not their job. And now they're going to be sprung on to have to handle that responsibility in the biggest game Ole Miss is ever going to play in the playoff game.
All right, Fresh. Well, we'll see what they come out with Tuesday. Maybe we'll have a little bit more on that in our preview episode as all of these kind of things work themselves out. Let's get back into rivalry week here on Friday night. We talked about Texas. Georgia took care of business against Georgia Tech. Again, tough fought game between the two of those two teams.
Haynes King's a warrior.
Kid's good.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of like hockey after like the Stanley Cup playoffs where guys get out, like they don't release their injuries until it's over. And then you start signing this massive list of internal bodily injuries that happen to all these hockey players and stuff that you're like, there's no way humanly possible I could survive. It kind of opens with like, all right, if Georgia Tech's not going to the playoff, what's the point of Haynes King playing in the bowl game? But I want to see, how's his body? I mean, what have they done to keep that guy upright? Because he is, for the past 2 years, laying it on the line every single play, made some throws. He missed some throws on Friday that probably cost him. They couldn't get in the end zone. The high scoring, one of the top 5 high scoring offense in the country, was held to 9 points. It's just, Georgia Tech now is in a weird situation. Buster Fulton is a hot commodity for to be an OC. There's rumors that he hasn't played with the OC at Auburn. There's rumors he might be the OC at Florida, because if Summerall goes, like, he's supposed to hire a big time offensive coordinator. So then that changed the dynamic of Brinke's offense. There's a lot of dynamics. Like, it kind of looked like the opportunity was there and they crapped the bed. They had a 2-year window. They choked versus NC State. They kind of fumbled it away, but they have the talent on that roster to get it done. They just couldn't find a way to pull it together when it mattered. Very similar to Miami, where it's in front of them, but they trip over their own feet. They're their own worst enemy. When they're really good, they're really good. And when they're not humming, they are bad. Hey, but you know what? You got to win the games in front of you, and they still haven't done it. That's 8 straight losses for Georgia Tech to Georgia, and Brent Key is still asking a lot of questions. And where do you go from here? Haynes King is the center point of the entire team. He's gone. Who can play at his level? And how can you adapt that offense and defense to play at a high level where everybody can contribute at an elite level? That's just a big start. The Georgia defense is getting better and better every single week. You've seen that growth where early in the year it was, hey, the second half versus Alabama, they shut them out. Then it was, all right, there's a lot of issues versus Ole Miss, but in the fourth quarter, they completely dominated. They dominated the fourth quarter versus Florida. You keep showing the growth, and then the second half of the season, they shut down Texas completely. There is a development on that defense. They didn't start that great, but they've gotten better. Can that defense now keep growing and let the offense get back on track? That's the intriguing part. Where's the fault? Are the guys invested? Are they healthy enough to keep building off the bat and move forward in the playoff?
Yeah. Georgia's defense was very impressive against them. What they did to confuse Haynes King and stop that running game and just completely shut down that offense there. Impressive job out of them. Only thing I'll take umbrage with, and it's the same thing I've taken all year long, Gunnar Stockton, man. They just looked rough. It was bad. It was a bad day for him. We'll see. We'll see how he recovers. We'll see. We'll just go on and
look at. Someone brought up a good point. The second half in the ACC Championship Game last year versus Texas, and that full game are the two times he played in the Benz. And his stats aren't pretty. He'll be a warrior. He'll dive, put his body in the line, but passing the football, it looks like he has the yips. Like it's just, you don't see, he obviously came in the first game off the bench and you sort of had to pick him up and lead a comeback, which I understand. You just got to survive and get it done. But he was definitely seeing some ghosts on Friday afternoon in the bench. And if he can get his mind right this week and prepare for Alabama and get back in there and sort of redeem himself, that's huge. If he comes out there with that again, that sort of leads a lasting memory in the committee's mind, especially if Georgia loses, of what about the quarterback? And we've seen good, and we've seen him play much more conservative. In the past few weeks, he has tried to throw the ball down the field a lot more. and you've seen more interceptions, but he's been taking more chances. Early in the year, he was very conservative. He would tuck it a lot more. You're starting to see, like, I'm going to let it swing, but not judging or not seeing the open route, and there's just something there they have to coach and develop and get them ready for something.
Yeah. All right, Fresh, let's go to Saturday here. Let's go up to Ann Arbor, Michigan. I've been waiting for this. Let me take a couple of victory laps here because all is back right with the world after 2,191 days. The Ohio State Buckeyes have again beat the team up north, the Wolverines from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I will say this, Fresh. It is one of the more impressive beatdowns I've seen Ohio State inflict on somebody. There's all this other noise out there that says, well, your schedule is what your schedule is. You pick up the teams you pick up. Yes, they missed USC. They missed Oregon. They missed Indiana this year. Penn State wound up being a dumpster fire. We didn't expect that. But at the same time, too, I know everyone's going to, Julian Sain played remarkable after that early interception. But again, the thing that I will go back to is the Ohio State defense. After the first quarter, Michigan had 2 drives. They had 80 yards of total offense in the first 2 drives. After that second field goal, the Ohio State defense only let up 83 total yards of offense. They suffocated the Wolverines. This is the most impressive win that I've seen in a very, very long time because it has been a while since I've seen a win over them in a long time. To the point that it was before my son was born was the last time I saw a win. So I'll take this one. Be very happy to have this one. Actually, I think he was just born last time I saw a win. But what I'll put out there is, as great as the offense is Bo Jackson being able to run the football, becoming a true workhorse of a running back. Julian Sain become more comfortable. Again, the 2 wide receivers, 3 wide receivers, if you want to include Brandon Innes in there, all contributed in this game. At the end of the day, though, that Ohio State defense is showing why they are truly elite. We'll see how this works out against an offense like Indiana's, and we'll see what they can do in that realm. Makes for a lot of intrigue next Saturday, but great job out of the Buckeyes. I loved every minute of it, and it just feels right.
I'm going to say right now, like, we had this whole hubbub about Bryce Underwood and all that money from LSU and Michigan.
He's not good.
He is mid, mid as mid can be. He is not good. They don't have any receivers that can get separation. They figure it could be the exact, the defense. Wink Martindale and that defense are very, very good. And the way he gets the guys to play at a high level, but that offense is just garbage. It looks like it's, obviously it puts more credence on, hey, it's easy to run an offense when you already know exactly what the opponent's going to do.
Right.
Con Stallions and Coach Harbaugh. That just, the layers of that cheating scandal keep coming out because this team, they didn't change any of their recruiting. I mean, the defense is always going to be pretty solid. And the offense are like, okay, Colston Loveland, no receivers, got a couple running backs and big offensive linemen. We've seen what J.J. McCarthy could do in the NFL, which is absolute hot garbage.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing the same thing from Underwood. He's this elite passer. You should adapt to the offense. So right now it's telling me that he's going there for a check and a check alone. It's not because the offense fits him. Don't give me that nonsense. If you wanted to actually have the offense, I'm not saying LSU would have been better, but anywhere else in the country would have made him a better quarterback. There is him dropping back. He does not see receivers really well. The offensive line doesn't, unless they are running downhill on you and they're getting turnovers short in the field, they are dead in the water. Kellen Moore has one more year and he knows it, that then he's gone. I don't care what the record is. They're not winning national championship next year. He was basically told, you got 3 years to take on the brunt of the mess, to be the front person for it, and then you're going to be canned. They can't do it after a year. They can't do it after 2 years. They're going to wait one more year. They're going to can. Underwood's going to hit the transfer portal, and then Michigan football will go out there and hire somebody else and kind of use these next 3-year buffer as we've paid our penance, we're done. But it is bad. The name alone, the big boosters are going to try to help them, but there's not much of a pulse of a quality football team there. At an elite level, are they mid to pack? Going to be 9-3, great. It goes back to the schedule. You played USC, congratulations. You played Ohio State, you beat a Washington team, okay. And you lost to Oklahoma.
They got suffocated versus Oklahoma.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma's defense is dominant. And all you need to back to the point of Ohio State, the defense just shows up, the offense doesn't have a pulse. If you get up by 10, it's over.
Right.
When Michigan only kicked those 2 field goals and it was 6 to 0, the game was over. Even though Ohio State hadn't scored and they had a turnover on the first drive, the game was over. Because your 2 drives, when you have to score touchdowns, you're settling for field goals, and then Ohio State defense locked it down. The game was over. All momentum was done. You had no opportunity to be creative. And the one game that you care about, there's nothing different about that Michigan offense. It's like, okay,
No.
single personnel. We're going to run the football straight, between tackles. Congratulations. And then when you had to, Underwood was getting sacked and harassed all afternoon. Ohio State looks ridiculously good. I'm not going to give away my preview, Big Ten title game preview thoughts, but they have been the most consistent team all season long. They are the most dominant team all season long, start to finish. And honestly, they're the 3 seed in the country after next Saturday.
Yeah. All right, Fresh, let's go to the other noon kick there in that one. I got to give you some credit on this one, too, because if you go back and watch our preview, there's Fresh sitting there telling everyone, Malachi Tooney, you got to watch him in Pittsburgh. And the kid went off. Throws a touchdown pass, 30 yards rushing, has 126 yards receiving, a touchdown catch, and 13 catches in Pittsburgh. The Panthers had no answer for Miami. And we saw good Carson Beck.
No, Carson Beck showed up. He played really well. He was very confident.
Defense played well, too.
But Tony, someone brought this up, and I was like, you know what? I'm right. Like, we had all this hub last year for Ryan Williams because he made one play. And at the very end of the Georgia game, it really was like, oh my God, Ryan Williams, don't forget he's 17.
Right.
He hadn't done anything the rest of the year and hadn't done anything this year. It's been everybody else. Like Orton and Bernard were the ones that showed up yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't we giving Tony as a freshman full love? Is it because it's Miami? If Miami is undefeated, would we get more love? I know there's the ESPN SEC hype machine, but Miami, it's more of Carson Beck gets all the love. We all talk about Carson Beck and not give Tony the love of that dude is a playmaker. Yes. I remember the touchdown versus Florida State. He took it, and I think he went like 75, 80 yards, one cut, untouched, and he just got faster and faster and faster and faster. Dude is electric, and he was a 3-star recruit out of South Florida. And that's where like the recruiting stars are great because there's so many. Well, they don't mean much. Get the kid on campus, put him in position to be successful. You have no idea what the high school program he was with is actually getting attention. How many camps did he go to? Does one high school program have a connection with rivals or whoever? He gets in a high another star. He showed up and made plays. And if they could keep finding ways to feed him and just be creative with the offense, he's not a normal X or Y. It's like they move him around, get him in space and let him just do his thing. He becomes destructive. And if Miami gets in, he is a very integral piece that is very difficult to cover. And you have to actually start bracketing him and giving him an underneath over top kind of coverage and responsibility, which opens up the rest of it because you're going to have man the rest of the way. So that, the Miami defense, Ruben Day and them, I'm like, all right, I know I don't trust them consistently, but that offense, if they're right, they are electric and can outscore anybody in the nation.
Right. And I just looked up here, Fresh. He is number 6 in the country in receptions right now. And he is number 3 out of guys in Power 4 conferences because another 2 guys who one's at UConn, one's at FAU, and the other one's at San Jose State. He is number 3, only behind a kid from Cal and a kid from Boston College with 84 catches, and he's got 5 more catches than Makai Lemon. I'm really, really high on. Now, Makai Lemon's got him in yards and in touchdowns, but again, I don't think Miami is committed to the pass as much as USC has in some of these other programs.
Well, and also, there's probably one disservice where, hey, we have big leads. Let's get everybody else in the game. Let's rotate them out. Where
right.
USC had some tighter games where they had to play Lemon. And it's kind of like, the games we got under control. We're done. But if they do make the playoff, and who knows what's going to happen, don't overthink it, Shannon Dawson. Don't overthink it, Carson Beck. Be creative. Get him to football. He's, you talk about game script. I don't care what your first 15 plays are, but he needs touches per quarter. Targets per quarter. And that's where you need to find ways to feed your best players, whether it's touches, catches, whatever, but getting them involved every quarter. He needs 5. He needs 4. Like to keep him involved, and then it opens up the rest of the offense because if he's getting fed the football, then that defense has to change their perspective and really more drive out how we stop Tony, which opens up other elements. So it's don't overthink it. You know what you have. Put the Cadillac out there and run.
Right. And I'm just double checking, make sure this is accurate here, Fresh. Ryan Williams did not play yesterday in the Iron Bowl.
He has to be hurt, but there's just something off with him. And he has not really showed up this year. But to back to the point, like even last year after the Georgia game, his stats fell off dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
And we kept hearing about Ryan Williams. He's 17. Where's the same love for Tony? Even for Lemon, yes, Game Day did a thing on him when they played USC in Oregon. Naturally, we need let's share the love.
This is why, again, I always will bring up the ESPN hype machine. It bothers me at times with that.
You don't even do it on Fox. Fox doesn't even do it.
Same thing. Problem is, we need to go back where it is national, and we need to look at every team balanced and kind of fair with it. But those TV contracts kind of say otherwise. You want to talk Big 12, you want to go up to Seattle, you want to talk about Oklahoma. Where else you want to go before let's wrap around here?
Oklahoma is an interesting story.
It is.
They have an elite, and I'm putting all capitals, elite defense.
They do.
That offense is hot garbage. You bring Arbuckle in, you bring Messier in from Washington State. Right there, I think it's also showing that what they did for Washington State in the Pac-2 and versus a lot of Mountain West opponents last year and putting up big time stats, things change when you get a little more higher competition because that offense has been dysfunctional. Now, yes, Messier hurt his hand and tried to rush to come back to play Texas and did not look good in that game. But that offense since that week has been terrible. The running game is very inconsistent. I know Jaden, I'm not sure if he's been healthy or not, but he's been relegated to the third string. The passing game has kind of been, it's been off, but that defense is so good, it keeps them in. And yesterday, they should have probably lost to LSU. And even the week before versus Missouri, the offense started really, really slow. And then they hit like a 75, 80 yard touchdown pass due to a broken coverage. And then it's like, it relaxes them, but it still doesn't, they don't put their foot down. It's like they need that one big play touchdown. So then, okay, deep breath, let's go. As opposed to let's come out there and just boom, 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 score. And you're playing better defenses. You're playing better teams in the playoff. Every touchdown, every drive is gold. And you cannot wait around for a score week in and week out. Yes, your defense is great, but the defense is not going to be able to hold you. If Oklahoma had to play Indiana or Ohio State, is that defense good enough to shut both those offenses down for 4 quarters? And you scoring less than 10 points.
Right.
And if you put up 9 points, you're not winning the game 9-7. You're going to need at least to score 17 points in a playoff game to win. So that has me doubting how that matchup is going to play for Oklahoma in the playoff. And if that offense can find a way to turn it around and get going, because right now it's holding them back from being a very good football team.
Yeah. The only thing, Fresh, and I got to bring this up to you, I flipped over to the LSU-Oklahoma game for a little bit, and the first question I asked myself when I was watching that game is Michael Van Buren long distance relative of Martin Van Buren, the 8th president? And like, is LSU going to commit to him and be like the Van Buren boys from Seinfeld?
Most
I think
likely
it's
not.
spelled different. I think it's spelled differently. I think Van Buren spelled.
There are some differences.
No, it's spelled the same way. Never mind.
I mean,
it would be a long distant relative. There are some differences. I know.
They're extremely long distance. Yeah. But
I would love to know. Is he really? I threw up their secret hand sign. If anyone doesn't know the Van Buren Boy episode from Seinfeld, go back and watch it. You'll get the reference. All right, Fresh.
How about BYU?
Let's go BYU.
UCF was jumping on them early, and then they just like, all right, enough of this. Scott Frost, you suck. And they just poured it on.
Yeah. And LJ Martin, this kid, again, people forget how good LJ Martin was. And then he has the injury this year. And then all of a sudden he's slowly coming back. And then the dude's turned into a monster. Bear Bachmeier has been incredible for the BYU Cougars. I cannot wait for the Big 12 title game next week. I really cannot. Because while I think Texas, like on paper, if this game is just played completely on paper, matchup wise, I think Texas Tech is the better football team against BYU. Man, it is. I don't think that there is a huge like chasm of space between the two talent wise. I think BYU is a very good football team. I've gotten into multiple conversations with people like, well, BYU, like who would they be? I would go, guys, let's get rid of all these hypothetical matchups because listen, there's a lot of. I thought that South Carolina was going to be amazing this year with Lenore Sellers. They're a 4-win football team. I was wrong. I wish I had listen, if you want me to I'll put the weird elf hat on my ears. because I said South Carolina was going to play for the SEC title game. So I'll take these off there. Maybe we'll do this for a holiday episode there, Fresh. I think BYU is a really, really good football team. And I think one of the things that we've missed in the past is BYU would get up, they would play really, really well early in the season, and then all of a sudden someone would figure them out. There was no counter punch. Like someone would figure, okay, I can defend them this way and I can attack BYU this way. I think this year is a little bit different. I think that the coaching staff has learned, all right, we're going to do this early on, and then they're going to make this adjustment to us. So now we've readjusted our game plan. I am super intrigued to see BYU Texas Tech on a neutral field in a dome, no elements. Let's line up and hit each other in the mouth. Because right now, if you said today, perhaps you got to put in your playoff committee. To me, both Texas Tech and BYU have done enough to get into the field of the playoff. I would make the Big 12 two-team league guaranteed right now if you force me to make a playoff field.
I would too. Actually, I moved BYU up. I'm not going to. You can find my full rankings on spinnablesports.com. I release them every single week. You can see every single week's post, top 25 and honorable mention. So check it out, spinnablesports.com. But I have moved BYU up after their performance because they did not mess around. Early on, all right, sleepwalk, but then it wasn't like Alabama messed. Even the Auburn, it's Jordan Ayers, Down Bowl. Alabama messed around. They played with their feet along. BYU is like, oh, you're up 14-0. I'm just going to go on a 41-6 run or 41-7 run. And you beat the brakes off of Scott Frost and make sure you don't go to a bowl game and that you know that the Big 12 belongs out west and not in Central Florida, which is the dumbest thing in the world. We can dive into that some other episode, why UCF is in the Big 12. But they asserted their dominance. They came out there and they took care of business. And now they get a chance, which everyone loves. You know, if you get a chance to have an in-season loss and get revenge in a title game to win a trophy, land a top 6 seed, or potentially even a top 4 seed and get a bye. Like, this is a big time for BYU. It also is very big for Texas Tech. Having that opportunity, the extra motivation of, you know what? We can go out there and get payback. What did we do wrong? How did we adapt? How did we learn? What did we learn from that loss? And how do we play at a higher level? Obviously, Texas Tech's going to be having some changes too, but it gives us that extra motivation, not just a conference title game, but a chance to redeem yourself. Very similar to what Georgia has with Alabama. Yes, Georgia has a significant Bama problem. They are the boogeyman. But you have a direct chance in the same season to get payback. And if you didn't have motivation, because right now it's like, the conference championship game, does it really matter? I'm in the playoff. But if you need the extra juice, having the chance to get payback in the same season is huge. And so BYU, Texas Tech, one of them potentially could get about a top 4 bid. The other one probably hosts a playoff game. Imagine a 7-10 or an 8-9 matchup in Provo on a Friday night in the snow. That is going to be a spectacle to be seen. A lot of water and green tea, no caffeine, but it'll be energy regardless.
That's beautiful in Provo. It's beautiful in Provo.
You're going to have a new kickoff in the Big 12 title game. Everyone's going to watch Georgia, Alabama. Everyone's going to watch Indiana, Ohio State. And unless you're a Duke or Virginia alum, or you're one of the at-large teams or you're
just a Chaos fan,
and you don't want Duke to win, and you're like, please, I'm praying everything to keep either Duke to win to allow me to have a chance in, or Virginia to just hold serve. That's the only way you watch that game. It'll be on the background, but I think we have 3 slates, 3 windows of fantastic football that all, as much as we think a conference championship games don't mean anything, they all still mean something. Playing for a trophy, winning your league still means something.
Yeah. It's going to be a blast here, Fresh, and I can't wait to see where we're going to get to on it.
Quick question for you. You know, looking at Alabama, BYU, Notre Dame, Vandy, Miami, Texas, you basically said BYU's in for you.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama, we kind of know it's win and you're in situation. Notre Dame, Vandy, Miami, Texas, really playing for one spot. What needs to happen in your mind that for each of those schools to get in?
All right, so we're talking about Notre Dame.
I mean, both.
Vandy, Texas.
He actually might not even make the playoff in most cases because you still have the ACC champ and you have the group of 5. I think if BYU, Alabama, Oklahoma, A&M, Ole Miss, Oregon, Texas Tech, Georgia, Indiana, Ohio State are all locks. Notre Dame, Vandy, Miami, Texas, all being left out.
So the crazy one, the crazy scenario is Duke being left out. If Duke beats Virginia, if Duke wins Virginia, that means that probably the American winner, James, that means we're getting probably, let's just say Tulane wins the American. Okay. That means we're getting Tulane and James Madison into the field.
And this is where I get it. We want to have smaller schools involved, but they're not one of the 12 best teams in the country.
No, they're not.
And having that superlative, that antidote, that disclaimer, it's where the other conferences are like, we have to have 16 because then it allows us to get the Vanderbilts, the Miamis, Texases, Notre Dame all in the playoff field. And I get it. They're all warranted as opposed to just the 12 best teams. It makes it very, very, very sticky and messy. Right. Now, Tulane, there's no way. I don't care if Duke beats Virginia and Tulane wins. Tulane beat Duke on the field. There's no reason in the world that Duke should be, even with 5 losses, there's no reason that Duke should be ranked higher than Tulane. Yeah. So that one solved itself. The North Texas game, even if Duke wins, North Texas will be 11-1, or 12-1, have beaten Tulane and have rolled through the conference and have won. It's a one-loss team, and they beat Tulane who beat Duke. You start playing the hype, the layers of, this and that. North Texas will then be higher. And I think North Texas will be higher than James Madison because they have better, stronger wins. Then that James Madison Duke conversation comes into play. If you put James Madison on the field with any of these other teams we talked about, it's going to be just like Liberty was when they played Oregon. It's going to be 65-0. God bless the Dukes, but you're going to get boat race. And that game will be a Friday night. You can kick that game off on Friday afternoon at 1:00 on December 19th. It would be painful.
So, Fresh, listen to this here. All right, let's go down this road real quick here. I kind of jotted this down and I might miss something here because I tried to do this real fast. Let's say Duke wins the ACC and and James Madison and Tulane are both higher ranked and both committee goes in. So you got those two teams in. We'll go.
It's 12 and 11 seed.
Ohio State and Indiana are both in. Georgia's in.
5.
Texas Tech is in.
That's 6.
Oregon's in.
7.
You can't kind of leave Notre Dame out. Or I'm not sorry. A&M. I'm looking down my list here. Sorry. You can't really kind of leave A&M out because they only have one loss. So A&M's in. So that's 8 teams right there. 4 teams still left to go. You got Ole Miss, 1 loss.
That's 9.
Now you're between, you got 3 spots for Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Alabama, Miami, Texas, Vandy, BYU. And I would put BYU in. There's 10. So you got 2 spots for teams. I think they go, if that happens, in my eyes, they go Notre Dame and Oklahoma.
So the Bama gets left out if they lose the SEC title game. So Bama has to be, basically it's a winner in situation.
Winner in. Because,
so extra motivation there.
Right. And here's the thing. People want us, we're criticizing Texas for losing to Florida. We are, right? That's valid. At what point are we going to criticize Alabama for losing to, and not just losing, getting boat raced and getting smacked around by we thought Florida State was going to be pretty good after that game. We were like, okay, Mike Norvell's figured it out, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, the wheels fall off of Florida State. I get it. It's week 1 and you have everyone's healthy. You have all this time to prepare. I get the argument for giving a week 1 loss. But if we're going to criticize other people, we cannot completely forget that certain teams lost at other times. This is supposed to be a whole body of work, not just what have you done for me lately. And that's why I leave Alabama out in most of my projections, unless they win the SEC title. Because here's one thing, Fresh, and I'll say this: this is why I'm so big on putting BYU into the field. In no world, if Alabama loses the SEC title game, in no world should BYU, even if BYU loses the Big 12 title game. BYU has lost to Texas Tech, who both of us agree is a very, very good football team. And you've lost to Texas Tech twice. There's no shame in that. And those are your only 2 losses, is losing to a team that's probably get a bye here. And that we're Alabama beat Georgia. Great. You have a 3-point win versus Georgia, but you lost to Florida State. Georgia came back, figured you out on a neutral field and beat you. And then you lost a very ugly game to Oklahoma at home. Oklahoma's a good football team. I won't really discredit you for that. But that Florida State loss should be like an anchor on you. Like, you should have to have wins over Georgia. You should have to have wins over Oklahoma. Who's Alabama's best win right now? I'm trying to think at the moment. Like,
Georgia,
Vandy
is their best win, and then Vandy. Georgia and Vandy. Two best wins.
But again, if Georgia came back and beat them, and you said, listen, you got redemption, and yeah, you beat them one time, but you're not better than, like, if Georgia goes into the SEC title game and wins by 10, it showed that Georgia got better, you got worse.
As it's the best 12 teams in theory right now. Like, where are you at? And that's where I think the committee has that. It's not where they were in August. It's where the best 12 teams are right now. And that's where the Miami Notre Dame argument comes into play. Notre Dame, obviously, the schedule has gotten win, but they have the margin of victory has been significant. They're not messing. They're not playing with food. And they go out and they're putting their foot down and taking care of business. I mean, you dropped 70 on Syracuse. You put 49 on Stanford. Yes, it's Syracuse and Stanford, but that right there is 119 points in the last two games.
Fresh, here real quick for this one. When was the last time Notre Dame didn't win by more than 10 points? More than 10. And this is the last time they won by only 10 points. Is October against USC. And then every game prior to that is a 20-point drubbing as well.
So the last 5 or 6 weeks.
Notre Dame, to me, they're in for a couple of reasons. One, I think we've seen both of their losses are, again, if we're going to criticize them, both of their losses are to teams ranked in the college football playoff thing. And then they've dominated everybody.
You got 3-point loss to Miami week 1 with a new quarterback, a lot of new players. And then, like I said, A&M, there was controversy. They had a big lead on A&M. That last play, there should have been called a holding on the offensive lineman. It wasn't. They score. They are a good football team, and they have shown to wipe that off and redeem themselves. So, and you know what? The Notre Dame brand, the money, that also, it's still entertainment. It's a business that gets weight in that room as well.
Yeah. I can't wait for us to talk and, record our preview episode coming up this week and talk about these college football rankings here coming into it, because I think the committee is going to provide us a snapshot of where everyone is. I think there's still some opportunities for chaos to happen. I really do.
Well, and if they're smart, I know it's not NCAA related, so it's not the NCAA men's basketball tournament or women's basketball tournament, where they have 6 different brackets with all scenarios coming into that Sunday. So if things happen, they can reshift, seeds and game matchups. But they need to have at least if they were smart, if it's chalk, this is what we have. If this happens, this is what we have. Is everyone comfortable with that? And does everyone agree with that? Next Sunday, when that last game ended, 11 o'clock midnight, whatever Eastern time, 11 o'clock or midnight Central time, when they're in that, in grapevine season, then you got to have it all done in 12 hours. And what debates all night long? But you have an idea of what's going to happen, because right now, there is not a clear 12 teams. There is a lot of arguments to be made, and it's going to cause controversy. It's going to cause people getting, their feelings hurt. In the end, don't lose to inferior opponents and take care of business and control what you can control. You're leaving it up, and if people are like, oh, we should bring the big BCS back. Well, then the people are going to get pissed at the BCS. Put it up to people. You know what we need to have? Get rid of the ADs. Get rid of all that. Give me 8 former elite college football coaches and 6 Heisman Trophy winners. Give me a 14-person committee, and then maybe even throw in 4 historical media members who are not currently in the media, and you have a 20-person committee, and you let it go from there. The media deciding playoff spots and ADs on is terrible.
Or you just put me and you on the committee.
Or that too.
Yeah, that would work. We'd be cheaper than all of them too.
You could name a price.
Yeah, I would do it. I mean, I'm sure that they're paying those guys well over 6 figures, right?
Probably getting decent. I mean, give me $100,000.
Again,
I can walk in and put my hat on the hat.
Right. If you give us $100,000, me and you will sit around, watch every single game, rewatch it multiple times, and kind of take copious amounts of notes. I think we'd be pretty okay with that.
Our food charge won't be that extreme. I'll be okay.
Yeah, I know. We can eat Panera all the time. I'm happy with Panera or Chipotle.
So something simple. I can make it happen.
Yeah. Although I will need coffee service. It's the one thing I will do. That'll be my only thing on the rider is that someone has to bring me my coffee every morning. But I'll be okay with that.
We can have a sponsorship for that one.
All right, Fresh. Well, Rivalry Week is in the books. It's been a heck of a year. It's just been an amazing ride. This has been one of the best college football seasons in my recent memory. We want to thank you guys for being along with us throughout the ride. We're not done, though. And again, while Rivalry Week marks the end of the regular season, it only means more from Fresh and I because we have bowl season, we have the playoffs, we have the annual Army Navy game, our favorite episode to do. We have after the college football season's over, after the playoffs are done, we crown a national title and we move over to NFL and then move into the best time where our football knowledge for college moves over with our NFL knowledge and we do our draft preview and who we think is going to be the best draft picks. So you guys don't want to miss a single moment of the action. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, get notified every single time we drop a new episode here. And make sure you guys subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. Check out spinnablesports.com. Special thanks to our producer, Drew. Without him, none of this is possible. Fresh, it's been a wonderful year. It's gone by a little too fast, and then it feels like it's also been forever, too.
College football, it's that one where football season in general, we wait all year to get here, and then, camp in August, and then boom, it's week. You got games every single day, basically during the week for NFL and college, and they should fly a lot faster. And then before you know it, December comes, and we're like, oh, well, we got less games, but the games mean more. Part of the college football lore is having 15 games in every time slot going out at the same time, just bouncing back and forth. Now it's a lot less in each window, but the games mean 10 times more because playoff spots are in the line. Chase for a national championship. Who's going to show up on game day and put it through? So looking forward to the next stretch. Looking forward to our preview for conference championship week next week. And onwards and upwards. The games mean more. And the chase for a championship is truly on. Until next time, everybody, we'll see ya. Subscribe, spread the word. Spinnablesports.com. Spinnable Sports YouTube channel. Hit us up on Twitter/X at IRConfidencePod. Can't wait to bring our preview for you for Championship Saturday. And until next time, talk to y'all later. Bye, y'all.